We are live.
The Fantasmagorium is proud to present Simulation, Sentinels, and Saviors, a review and discussion surrounding the world of the Matrix. Released in 2021 after years of refusals from the Wachowskis, Lana, minus Lily, returns to co-write and direct the continuation of the original Matrix trilogy. A victim of skepticism towards a legacy sequel that would follow up on a seemingly complete saga, hindered financially by a day-and-date streaming and theatrical release, and a world who had already cast a shadow upon the previous two installments, could this movie live up to the original? Of course, we must close out our Matrix exploration by discussing The Matrix Resurrections. I am Scotty R37. Kat returns from the previous reviews. El Uno has a beard, and Steve is recast as Neil Patrick Harris. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good.
I had an opportunity to see this movie for the first time 2 days ago. This was the first time that I've seen a Blu-ray of a Matrix movie, and not to get ahead of myself, but I enjoyed it. I had heard so many mixed things. I had heard so many just people had walked out on it. People turned it off, didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I kept sitting there and waiting for it to be like, okay, so when is it going to suck? So when is it going to suck? And I was pleasantly surprised that I never found that it sucked. What did you think, Kat?
I love the first 45 minutes of it and the whole meta aspect of it, because it's not just that they refused to do a sequel all these years. Warner Brothers finally got sick of the refusals and said, look, we're doing this with or without you, but we'll let you have a first crack at it. And only one of them came back to do it because the other had a scheduling conflict that was going on. And so kudos to Warner Brothers for letting them just be so blatant about insulting the studio by name in the first hour. And just, I mean, the whole first 45 minutes is a total flipping the bird to the whole soulless corporate, raking over the coals of our favorite IPs and stuff. But then the rest of the movie, it's like, okay, now you've done all that fun stuff. Now you have the problem that you have to tell a compelling story. Like, what's the movie going to be? And it gets bogged down at that point with a lot of explain-a-vision. Like, oh, then this happened while you were gone, and this happened, and that, and then the analyst came up. Oh, and it's like, okay, most of the lore tracks, but it felt like I was watching like a history lesson rather than an engaging story. And it didn't help that the shaky cam was pretty bad, or sloppily done, some bad editing. They didn't have a martial arts master for the fight choreography like they did the first time around, and they tried to hide that with bad editing choices. And so it just, the filmmaking quality just was not there. But I did, again, like how they ended Morpheus' story. Like, continuing the deconstruction of the prophet myth and where that goes. It's, like, kind of sad. And I wish they kind of spent more time on that, but the story doesn't really allow it. And it's also just, it feels way too long. At, nearly 2.5 hours. It's just, I was getting a bit fatigued watching it. But not, fair. I didn't think it was the hot garbage that a lot of people were saying.
Precisely. Steve, what were your thoughts?
Same. I actually watched this at home, day and date, right? So that was a bummer for the movie overall. But I like Kat. I enjoyed the first half of the movie, first 45 minutes, whatever. I thought it was, I thought we were really getting in for something really good. But then it kind of fell back on an unoriginal kind of story. Or maybe a retelling of a story that we already had, and it was just I was hoping to close that this movie would close better than it did. I like Kat didn't think it was hot garbage like a lot of people did. I had fun with it. I thought it was fine. The shaky cam stuff. I wish the movie was actually put together better. I just wish it was made better. That might have helped the weak storyline or the kind of unoriginal story that they told. I liked the actors they put in there. That was fine. I didn't have any problem with any of the casting or recasting. It felt a little like, oops, maybe we should have made maybe we should have made Trinity the hero in the first one, and here's our redo, girl power thing. But other than that, I don't know. It felt kind of like a redo, like oops, we made a mistake. We're gonna try to correct it. It does. It kind of ended on a note of, okay, maybe there's going to be more of this, and I think maybe that was Warner Brothers' plan all along. They wanted to kind of kickstart a new trilogy of movies, or at least some more movies. But overall, decent. Out of the trilogy, it's not. It doesn't stand out as better than any of the other movies to me. I still think the first three movies are better, but like I said, it's not the worst thing. But put that on the poster.
Yeah, exactly.
Matrix Resurrections. It's not the worst thing.
El Uno, Ernesto, what were your thoughts upon seeing the Matrix Resurrections?
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Because Blue's over here chewing up a storm. I don't want the reverberations to interrupt here. Calm down.
Thank you. I'm glad that Blue as well.
Yeah, Blue is actually much better. Her GI has resolved. Now it's just transitioning her back to her regular food.
There she is.
So shaking. I'm with Kat that the first half of the movie is actually doing something new. It's going through that whole process of, hey, we're going to stick it to Warner Brothers. We're going to utilize the first trilogy and make it meta, like, oh, it was a video game, kind of going with, there was actually a video game. And just like a franchise, hey, can we revisit this and squeeze it for more money? And I'm like, yep, that is pretty much a very poignant way of going about, this is how franchises go to die. In a sense, and it all happens in a committee. It's by committee, and I like that first half. And yeah, when we get to the second half, then it just becomes by the numbers. It's even when it turns into a heist movie, and it felt like I was watching a Fast and Furious movie, one of the lesser sequels. But I was never bored. I was interested. I liked some of the casting choices for familiar characters, like the Smith character being portrayed by Mr. Groff, and his Mr. Anderson line, like I mentioned before, goes very hard in that one scene, which I pretty much enjoyed. And he was actually kind of like one of the better aspects of this movie. You have other characters like that one Neo fanboy who pretty much dresses like Neo from the first movie all throughout this. So it was fun to watch. But yeah, it falls into that quadrilogy edition that you're hoping it's going to be as good, but it actually just becomes standard fare for franchises these days. So it's a meta commentary, but at the same time, it falls into, you were saying something, but then you fell into your own trap and you never got out of it. Right. So it's not bad. And it really wasn't served well with the climate at the time when it was post-COVID, recovering, and the day and date not really helping it out. And the box office at the time, there were other bigger releases coming out that pretty much just say, yeah, this is not what the audience wants. They probably would have wanted it at some point, but they don't want it right now.
Yeah, well, and I think that because of the shadow that was cast over Reloaded and Revolutions, that this one was sort of like, oh, we're going back to the well. And that's why I avoided it for so long. But I did, like, once I got into the way it was going, absolutely. I agree with you guys wholeheartedly in terms of the meta commentary. It's almost like when you saw the Simpsons movie and then there was that little ticker at the bottom that said, don't forget to watch Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader at 8 o'clock on Fox. See, we're putting ads in movies now. That's how bad we are. And so it was that sort of sticking it to the studio, the commentary on the executives being like, what is the Matrix about? It's about messing with your mind, bullet time, and all this stuff. And so they're even pitching the concept of the movie to the audience in the middle of the movie. I thought that was clever.
I wish they would have kept that throughout the entirety of the movie. That kept up that kind of that commentary and that kind of quickness. But like Ernesto said, it just falls into basically falls back on their the old tropes. So it's unfortunate because the movie about halfway through just kind of gets lackluster. You're like, God damn it, this is really
like
good, and then.
Yeah, because it's like all that meta stuff, it's great, but it doesn't really have any bearing on the rest of the story.
No.
It's just kind of there. And I didn't care for Jonathan Groff as the new Smith because he's playing the same dry delivery that I've seen him do in a lot of characters that he plays. Kind of like his character in Mindhunter, who's like not able to cue into social situations at all. And it's like, I feel like you're playing that character again. This doesn't feel Smith-like at all, and that's supposed to be what you're channeling. It made sense that the Merovingian is kind of a homeless man who hates Neo, because it's that if Neo had never severed Smith's connection, then he would never have lost his entire little empire, black market empire. But then he kind of breaks the fourth wall even further when he's like, I want a sequel in a franchise or a spinoff or whatever he says.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
We're almost at that point where we're gonna get a Matrix sequel with another R that says The Matrix Remake.
Yeah. So that was there. But then again, the lore of Io, and that would have been an interesting subject of another trilogy if they wanted to do. Like, yeah, the piece was, because like you mentioned last week, Scott, it's like there's unanswered questions from Revolutions. Like, how was Neo able to use his powers outside the Matrix? How is it that he ended up in the train station? And how does this train station even exist? It's like, there's no shortage of fun spin-off movies you could do, like all sorts of caper espionage stories you could tell within the Merovingians' black market dealership, so to speak. But in this movie, it's like, they don't really, again, they're not really answering questions, but they're just, it's like chasing its own tail. Let's just do this again as a reboot. Because now that we've spent the first 45 minutes mocking studio reboots, let's just have the rest of the movie be itself another reboot. But
or the current state of action movies leading up to that point.
Right. But again, the other unanswered question from Revolutions is like the movie ends with the Oracle asking whether the architect will keep his promise to maintain the peace, and he's like, well, what do you think I am, human? And it's like, well, it's kind of inevitable that this was going to happen, because if humans are allowed to leave the Matrix at will, you're going to have a power shortage. Yep. So when you hear about Niobe talking about the history, it's like, that would have made for an interesting another 1 or 2 movies to tell that story, as opposed to just summing it up in a quick history lesson.
Yeah, because I could totally see it like the humans are pretty much the spectators of this new conflict that has something to do with them, but they're not exactly the ones being attacked. They're just watching their overlords or their previous overlords going at each other. And then I can see a situation where the humans plug back in to help the resistance within the machine war that was happening at that time. That would have been interesting.
Well, yeah, because then they mentioned that the reason the war is happening at all is because some of the machines want to uphold the promise and actually help the humans escape Zion before its ultimate destruction, and rebuilding Io. And when they're talking about the new technology they have and how clearly much better the civilization of Io is compared to Zion, because it's like Zion, it feels like living in Zion was no different than living aboard the Nebuchadnezzar. It's like just as industrial, just as worn down, eating the same crappy. Whereas now they actually are starting to resemble a more natural human civilization. I'm like, I wish they really told that story, because, and I get they're doing a bit of a trans allegory there with the Trinity at the end of giving her the power, and it's like, okay, but it's like you already told. But again, like Steve said, it's like we've already told this story. It's like, if you want to do all the meta stuff, let that feed into something new and unique, and yet all of the things that are new and unique, which is the history thereafter, is just summed up in a brief history lesson. It's like, no, that's your movie.
Yeah.
But we do. But also, to Steve's point, we know that they're going to make more of them, because last year it was announced that Drew Goddard was hired to make another Matrix film, and that Lana will be executive producer on it. So,
right.
Yeah, if they really wanted history to repeat itself with the franchise, then before Resurrections, and I'm just throwing it out there because a what-if scenario, then we could have got the sequel to the Animatrix, and the Animatrix would have revolved around what happened in, what was it, 60, 80 years? Something
60.
like that?
60 years between...
Yeah. The Animatrix could have been the 60 years about what happened from Zion to Io.
Yeah, and before we get back into it, big shout out to Phantom Organist. I'm glad you're on the mend, sir. Hola to Kat, Steve, Ernesto, and Scott. And then Herc, Flyboy, what's going on? Hola, amigos, amigas, and ninjas. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I wanted you to say ninjas.
Ninjas? Yeah, that would have been, but also, like, there's, in terms of the world building and the stuff that they did do, I kind of appreciated that the sort of machine allies of the humans was kind of reminiscent of that last segment in the Animatrix. Like, even the design of the character running around, who was like the little guy, the little sprightly, I don't even know what his name was, or its name was. And one of the things that the Wachowskis had said when they did the Matrix Online, the MMO RPG.
Yeah.
They said, whatever you guys write, we will adhere to when all future movies come out. And even Lawrence Fishburne was asked, are you going to be in the new Matrix? And he's like, no one has talked to me at all, because they had done that storyline, the death of Morpheus, in the game. And they were like, well, we're going to adhere to it. So in terms of that trans-canonical verisimilitude of storytelling, I appreciate that if you were invested in the Matrix from soup to nuts, then you were still like the creators were still adherent to what had happened previously with throughout the lore, which I thought was, in an age where people say you're not respecting the source material or you're not respecting the lore, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was, as a fan and having watched all of these movies recently, it's like I'm glad that it still fits.
Yeah.
Like it's not clumsy and it works for me.
And it's also an amalgamation of what came before, which, as you do with programs, you delete the old one, and the new one is new, but it has a little bit of the old. It's just a hybrid of itself.
Yeah. Now, I didn't get the sense of it being a girl boss. I thought it was like with Trinity, because I had heard that. I had heard it's like, oh, now Trinity's the one. And I never got that. I got that that Neo and Trinity were like the power couple now, and they had to do something to sort of reverse it so that the start of this new trilogy, or whatever it was going to be, I can't believe they're still going to do it because this thing tanked because of its release. But you had to have someone going to rescue someone from the current iteration of the Matrix, which kind of mirrored the first Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So and then at the end, I got that everything was binary, and the dyad between Neo and Trinity. I thought that worked.
Yeah, I think it was all right. I mean, Trinity they made Trinity. I don't know if she was actually sharing Neo's abilities or suppressing them. I don't know.
Well, the way the analyst describes it is that when they brought them both, it was the nature of their relationship of being physical proximity that they complement each other and creates a lot more energy for the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like maybe it's because when Neo got, like, it took a while for Neo to start gaining his powers back. Like when he says, yeah, I can't fly, that's not going to happen. Or like even when they redid the tea house fight, when they redid the dojo fight, Morpheus really had to push him to like this emotional edge to get him to be able to tap into that again. So that seems to be where they're going with that, like complementing their powers and advancing it.
Yeah, I think that didn't the analyst in the end basically said something to the effect, and it's been a while since I've seen the movie, so forgive me, but something about like together they were when they're in close proximity to each other, it's such a drain on the power consumption, right? Such a drain on the power of whatever that immense energy system, whatever it is.
Well,
that powers the Matrix and everything else in the world.
And Daniel's Hot Topics is here. This was the third best movie. It was so great. And it's interesting that you say that, Daniel. I am of the opinion that this is probably my third favorite out of the four. I still like all four. So it's not like, but I was like, I think this is better than Revolutions, in my opinion, just as being a little bit more playful, because even with the action sequences that were going on, it doesn't look so PlayStation 2-y. Like, I liked how it was sort of more, I know they didn't have an actual, like, it wasn't the same level of martial arts expertise, and the wire work that they were doing didn't look as good as the first one. But it felt less like a cutscene and more like an action movie, which I did appreciate. And they introduced something, they name dropped it, and they were like, oh yeah, Viral Smith. And I was like, holy shit, it was viral. That's cool. It just sort of spread throughout the Matrix in Reloaded.
Yeah, you could do worse. You could do worse with quadrilogies, and this one does it better than most.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when the first trailer came out, which, by the way, kudos to whoever put that trailer together with the Go Ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. That song, the White Rabbit song.
Mhm.
That, if the movie had lived up to that trailer, that movie would have performed a lot better. It would have garnered a lot more attention. That was like the perfect 3-minute trailer that I've ever seen in a long time. And I'm against 3-minute trailers for a first trailer because it kind of gives you everything and plot details. But I like that when it first came out, I had discussed with Catherine. It's like, oh, I like that it's a blink and you miss it, but in the trailer you see all the people with their eyes on their smartphones, and they're basically blue pilled with the phones. They don't need to really hammer away because, oh, the machines found a way to dull the senses of everybody to not have to be getting any wild ideas about escaping the matrix. Give them the smartphone, and and that could have been a great, oh, that has so much potential to in itself be a storyline with the phones and the meta and everything. But it was just like, oh yeah, it's there, but we're not going to touch it. It's just there. So there are a lot of potentials here that maybe in other movies they can explore it. I can kind of see this franchise now being like, and I know most haven't watched a lot of anime here, but the anime that came out a few years ago where everybody is locked in a MMO video game,
Hmm.
and they're locked in there. Basically, if they don't get out, they're going to die in the real world, or if they die in the game, they die in real life. So everybody is hospitalized because they need nutrients, they need um, saline and everything because they can't get out. So I can Sword Art Online. It's called Sword Art Online. I can see this franchise being just like that, where people can be in the Matrix, but the stakes are now different. Instead of it being life or death, it is missions, and you can do it like an anthology with different people. So I can see the franchise going that route if they want to move away from the Neo and Trinity and give other characters, other codes, other anomalies a chance, because you can only redo the first movie so much.
I like the fact that this new Matrix that was built, unlike the old one, kind of thrives on manipulating the emotions of the humans.
Hmm.
Right? I thought that was cool. I think there's something there if they want to expand on that and expound on that in future movies. That'd be interesting. I also think if they wanted to do some more spin-off stuff, I think a series centered around the Merovingian
Yeah.
and his, and all his underworld kind of dealings. I think that would be very interesting, gritty, kind of cool HBO style, series.
Oh yeah, if they did like limited episode seasons with it,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
I don't even know. I usually I lean when it's something like that. It leans towards being an anthology show. Like you see different aspects of it, but it wouldn't be bad following sort of the court of the Merovingian.
I do. I like that, and I wouldn't even mind if you did like anthology by season, right? Each season, like the Merovingian would be season one, something else would be season two,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Or it can go back to the earlier suggestion. HBO presents, or HBO Max, depending on which one you take, the new Animatrix, but it could be live action anthology series.
I'd take that too.
And I like
Yep.
the idea of how easy it could be to manipulate emotions just with smartphones and social media.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Matrix does it, like the machines wouldn't even have to try at that point. Like the analysts would be so easy. It's
All
like
they can do is just write a code, and people just lose their fucking minds.
exactly.
It's
But yeah,
exactly we see that happening in our real world, right? And have
well,
seen.
yeah, there were lawsuits even in New Zealand because Facebook got in trouble because they were caught doing an experiment like that on young kids who had Facebook accounts, like manipulating what they see in their feed to determine if that affects. And they got slapped with a pretty big fine for that one.
Oh hell yeah! All the hearings and everything, and then not only did Facebook get in trouble, but everybody associated or even in the same room, they went after them.
Right. And it's like, so imagine transposing that to the Matrix, and that would be neat. But
Yeah,
that's a whole other interesting story, much like you were mentioning with the Merovingian. It's like, yeah, like there's no shortage of espionage caper stories you could tell with his whole black market world. And it's like
yeah.
after Inception came out, and I'm like, okay, Nolan used this to tell that type of story, but I would love to see this type of technology used in other types of stories, but it never happened. Well,
Yeah.
because the Matrix has so many avenues for neat tech, there's really no limit to the stories you could tell in that universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've already told your grandiose
Yeah.
religious parable thing with the original trilogy.
Mhm.
Well, now you could just tell all these other fun stories now.
Yeah.
And it could be legend stories because they see Trinity and Neo as legends.
Yeah.
So other legends can be born, but from different
Mhm.
walks of life. Hell, I could even see a sequel where cryptocurrency is fucking up the Matrix because it's code and the code goes out of in the real world with cryptocurrency, you need to farm a lot of hard drives and that
Yep.
draws up a lot of energy. That could be something that the machines could do, but then it implodes because you don't know how the market works, do you?
Right. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah. I mean, if they really wanted to tell stories and link them to real world issues, I mean, it's all right there.
Yeah.
They just have to do it. They just have to decide to do it. We'll see what Goddard does. I like his stuff. I like what he did with Cabin in the Woods for sure. Some of his other work. So.
Yeah, because I don't picture like Keanu Reeves coming back for more and more, Matrix stuff.
I don't know either, but I mean, I guess it all depends on if he likes the script or not.
Yeah, and that was one of my other. That was one of my other criticisms of the movie. I thought he had his weakest performance in this fourth one, and some of his dialogue was really bad. Like when he meets Trinity in the coffee shop, he's like, "I've been waiting for this my whole life," and just some of that dialogue was just, and his acting there was just not like you could tell he's trying to portray all this different range because he's really psyched out once he stops taking the pills.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is just not. Again, it's showing I love Keanu Reeves, but it's just not that great with range as an actor.
Yeah.
Do you think he was trying to go back to how he approached it in the first one with a naivete or whoa kind of thing?
Yeah, I think he was trying to do that. It just felt very I bought into that a lot more as like a younger surfer dude, like classic Neo.
Yeah.
But here for some reason I just didn't find it working very well.
I kind of found it to be, again, like, because they were sort of taking this is one of those movies that, yeah, it helps to know 2 and 3, but it is really one of those movies that it's like, okay, we kind of know that the audience doesn't really they weren't as enamored with the second and third as they were with the first one. So we're making a sequel to the first one. If you know about 2 and 3, it helps, but this really just does that. And as a sort of reversal of him wanting to know about what's going on in the Matrix in the first one, this one he's been so addled by blue pills to try and keep him out of the Matrix. I think he was going for that sort of agoraphobic, anxiety-ridden, I don't want to deal with the real world kind of character.
Oh, for sure.
As opposed to the first one where it's like, I need to find out what the real world is. And so I liked that sort of that switch. No pun intended.
You know what would have been cool? You know how we see him as Neo, but in his world, he's seen as someone else. I think that was an opportunity there to make him look like a previous anomaly. You know how they could, this is like the 6th time we destroy it. It would have been cool if there was like a nice, fun cameo of an actor used to be like, oh, they made you look like the previous anomaly, just like a little like a throwback to Reloaded when he meets the architect.
Well, there like some of the cameos that were not really cameos because they're just other actors. I think that the actual image of Neo, that's Carrie-Anne Moss's real life husband, I think. And then in Trinity, her alternate physical appearance is who is it? Oh, James McTeague's real life wife. So they were putting in sort of like Easter eggs for themselves, like, and then Trinity's husband, Tiffany's husband, is the guy, was the stunt double for Neo.
Chad Stahelski, the director of all the John Wick films.
Yeah. Right. But if you don't, like, you really have to, you've got to know this.
Tom Hardy is an extra in the coffee shop because they were filming Venom 2 at the same time in San Francisco when they were filming this movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to, again, I'm going to rewatch it again because, Kat, you're absolutely right, is that there is a lot of this movie that is expositional. It just gets into it. And I found points that I was watching it, and then someone would ask a question or they would ask for clarification, and the dialogue would just go so quick that it's like, okay, we're answering the question, but you can't pay attention because we're speaking so quickly. And it's like, oh, okay, all right, stop it, get to fighting.
Yeah. I kind of wish, just as an aesthetic, like acknowledging all the cameos and who's there and who's not, I kind of wish he didn't have the John Wick look. It was very distracting because you can tell that it was in between sequels. And yes, eventually they do shave his head and shave off his face for when he's outside of the Matrix. But you can tell everything in there was done in between sequels. And it was either after, when the contract was over for the John Wick, that they were allowed to cut his hair and everything and not pull a Man of Steel. I mean, a Justice League with the mustache situation.
Yeah.
But it was distracting because I'm just like, I feel like Neo is like, I feel like I'm watching John Wick and he's stuck in a program. That's it was very distracting, and it's only distracting for me and for anybody who was following the John Wick franchise and waiting, because Keanu's career was resurging because of the John Wick movies. I don't even know if they would have even bothered with Resurrections had his career not, gone out the stratosphere again. So it's one of the it's a cosmetic issue I had with his character. I would have liked to have seen the short hair or the fade, something, but it really did feel like I'm watching John Wick and he doesn't have his gold coins and he's not kicking ass like he normally does.
Right. Yeah, that's a fair criticism. I think I think that Warner Brothers really wanted to do more Matrix movies, so I don't know if it really hinged on Keanu for 100%, but it obviously didn't hurt that his career was on an uptick.
Yes.
Well, Wachowskis did say that Warner Brothers had approached them many times over the last 20 years to do more sequels, and they just turned them down every time. So I'm sure they finally, given Keanu's career resurgence, they're like, look, we're doing this with or without you now.
But I'm surprised because...
howdy, Lemon Pie.
Hey, Lemon.
Hello, Lemon.
Yes, howdy, Scott, Ernesto, and Steve, in no particular order, but one can't go wrong giving Cat top billing.
True story.
We always give Cat top billing. That's why she's in the top left corner. Yeah, now I forgot my train of thought.
But they do, like, it is a situation where they keep pointing at all of the things. Like when they recast Morpheus because he was a program that was like an amalgamation between Morpheus and Smith. Mm-hmm. And they do mention, they were like, I just don't know about the beard, the hair. And so it's like if they do make the second one and that guy shows up again, he's probably going to have long hair and a beard so he can emulate Neo because he's a Neo fanboy.
Yes.
Daniel's Hot Topic says, back when I was watching Matrix Reloaded and Smith turned into a virus against the Matrix, I was like, this could be the start of a partnership. It could be Neo and Smith versus the Matrix. Sadly, it never happened back then, but now my greatest vision is realized. Neo and Smith have joined forces in Matrix Resurrections.
I always saw it, and I just rewatched. Well, I watched the second half because I watched the first half a couple of days before, so I finished it today. I like that it was more of a, I don't like what you're doing, so for the moment, this is just an alliance of convenience. Mm-hmm. But I did like that if it were someone else other than Groff, it would have been like, yes, it's me. That would have been great.
Well, and again, like the cast had been very supportive of the idea. It's like if they ever make another one, Lawrence Fishburne and Hugo Weaving both said that if the Wachowskis were involved, they would be happy to return. But again, because of the doomed production timeline based on COVID, and I think that there were scheduling conflicts with Hugo Weaving, and that's why he didn't come back. But it didn't really bother me because at this point, like it's a computer reboot and it's a film reboot. But when you, as you said, when you upgrade and reboot something, then, sometimes it works better, but the icons change slightly. And I was okay with it.
To that end, why would there be another Smith? You think the machines would have made sure to delete that program or get rid of that entirely before rebooting the Matrix after what happened last time?
Right.
But that's also, isn't that because like Smith had gone into Neo, and so there was some Smith in Neo, and then when he returned the favor at the end of the first one, he set Smith free, but that also entitled Smith to some of the Neo powers?
Maybe, because it's like they explained the whole resurrection pod like really quick. Like, Sadi's dad is from the train station, is the one who created it, because there are certain humans that, we might get more electrical power out of him, so let's just bring him back. Doesn't make any sense how that would have helped Trinity, because she was impaled and dead for, just done for. But I guess they have healing powers as well to bring her back to life, like patching up her body and all of that. But it's like, okay, so you've put him back in the pod, you've wiped his memory, and somehow I guess the Smith part of him is splitting and becoming its own separate physical program. I mean, again, things that they don't really explain in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a quick montage of how the Smith program would have been able to latch on to the Groff character after Neo was brought back, because it's kind of like the Ultron situation. If there's even just a tiny bit of a port or an exit, then he would make a copy and store it somewhere for a rainy day.
Because I know they brought back Daniel Bernhardt to play Agent Johnson again, but his scenes got cut.
Yeah.
And so they got a guy who was a younger lookalike.
They look mean as hell, and I liked them.
Yeah, so they got a different guy who was like a younger lookalike to play the other agent, who's mostly in the opening sequence chasing down Bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of Bugs, I was like, I liked the new cast. And as I mentioned last week, I was hesitant because I was like, I don't know if Neil Patrick Harris would make a convincing villain, to the point that I didn't even know that I thought he was just going to be the architect when Neo is sort of going back into releasing from the Matrix, and Neil Patrick Harris is like, this is all a dream, and he's like on his side. I thought it was going to be like a reprogramming of the Oracle or the architect, trying to maintain the fidelity of this new Matrix. And then when he turned out to be the, primary villain, I was like, oh, he's doing a great job. Kudos to Neil Patrick Harris.
I like it. It was a combination of the Merovingian and the architect. Mm-hmm. Had the smarts for it and twice the misogyny.
Well, yeah, that's why he replaced the architect, because he was smarter. It's like, yeah, you could do this instead.
I even like that he actually had to wear the blue glasses. Like, okay, now you're really pushing the blue pill here.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel's Hot Topic says Matrix Resurrections is going to start off as a shared universe. We were supposed to get a Merovingian movie and an Animatrix 2, but it didn't happen because the Resurrections didn't do so well. I seem to remember reading reports about that at the time as well. And that's, again, entirely AT&T's fault, because when they took over Warner Brothers, put those morons in charge. And it's like, I get that a lot of fans didn't like this movie, but it would have made a lot more than the $160 million that it made if they didn't go day and date. Yeah. And you can't say that COVID would have held them back, because Spider-Man No Way Home came out and made $1.9 billion. Like, people were ready to go back to the movies.
I could have seen it. I mean, realistically, we're never going to know, but I could have seen it perform like the first Dune did. Granted, the first Dune was also day and date, but that 400 plus it made, respectively, that I could have seen for Resurrections. It might not have made 700 or 800 like the previous, but at least you have a baseline for a new trilogy.
It would, it would have made 300 or 400 million easily.
Hot Topic says, I really hope Hugo Weaving returns in Matrix 5. He has to, because Warner Brother realized that Hugo Weaving must be involved. A lot of the Smith fans just rebelled and left. I heard a lot of people were upset about the recasting, but again, they wanted to bring him back. They just couldn't.
And that's something that I thought that I was going to sort of be bristled by, is the recasting. But having just gone through the Oracle from Reloaded to Revolutions, I was like, no, any of these programs can change their faces at any moment. It doesn't bother me at all. I think that, and I don't want to speak for fans of the original trilogy or of the original movie, but I think that it may have just been a case of a legacy sequel too far after the original, that no one really, like, people have a bad habit of saying no one asked for this, and it's like, no one asked for the first Matrix and you loved it, so shut up, Gladys.
And the thing is that this one at least had the advantage that it didn't have the 30+ year wait time between movies.
Sure.
But again, it was a positioning, it was a timing, it was a whole lot of crap that just was playing against it.
Daniel follows that up by saying,
shout
"Yeah,
out
I
to
know,
old.
right?"
Oh, I just want to shout. No, I want to shout out Old Man Bird, and now Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel says, "Yeah, I know, right? Gotta say, fans are morons because they went in droves to see No Way Home because they wanted to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, yet they didn't go out to see Matrix Resurrections." Well,
But I think,
No Way Home was not day and date like Resurrections was, which is first.
Yeah, right. Not to put it down, but it is Spider-Man. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but also if you I'm gonna rewatch Resurrections again, and I'm gonna because a lot of people were talking about it. I think it was the competition at the time, and having rewatched No Way Home a couple of times, No Way Home does not hold up except for the jangly keys.
Right. Yeah, I think that too, but I didn't think any of those Spider-Man movies were all that great.
I like the first one.
Well, it didn't annoy me as much as Far From Home did, and really the movie picks up the moment the Willem Dafoe's character starts to play. That's
sure.
The first hour was just set up for what they really wanted to do, which was in the apartment with the
right. It's just that there's a ton of logical fallacies in it. I mean, there's not necessarily plot holes. The plot still works. It's just that there's so many logical fallacies.
Oh yeah, I wanted to punch Aunt May in the face every single time she kept opening her mouth about Peter. You're supposed to give him a second chance. Do you know who this man is?
Well, they don't. That's the whole point.
I know, but in my head, I'm thinking, Jesus fucking Christ, am I the only person who sees this as a bad idea?
But I do.
But your basis of that is based on the fact that you know who these people are from the other universes. They don't.
But because of that, it was making that first hour non-enjoyable. That's why.
Another decision I really couldn't get on board with this movie is when Niobe makes the very valid point that, sorry, Neo, I can't let you risk the destruction of Io just to rescue Trinity, who isn't really in need of being rescuing. And yet he does it anyway. When Morpheus breaks him out, he's like, oh, it's not really a choice. I'm like, actually, this is a real choice that you're making. And I got to side with Niobe. It's not worth risking the destruction and the discovery of Io to get Trinity out of something which isn't really, that she wasn't really being threatened by anything. So it's like, I was like, I can't really get on board with this plan.
But you can still have the argument that she is technically imprisoned.
Yeah, but by that logic, they would break everybody out of the Matrix at the same time.
No, what I'm saying is that she was already free, and then they put her back in there against her will. And you can also argue, well, she was dead, so she had no choice. I'm like, well, we're going back to the choice here. You didn't give her the choice. And the movie itself, which goes back to that argument that we all agree it really wasn't a girl power movie, but words matter, and this movie was full with words like agency, choice, her agency. So it all really was centered around the I guess you could call it the female perspective or the female gaze, kind of that conversation. It was all really centered about Trinity itself. So
but I found it that Trinity was sort of the complement to Neo, which would provide the power, because it did sort of heighten things, and it reminded me sort of Hancock, because remember how Charlize Theron and Will Smith, they're built in twos, and when they get closer together, they become more powerful. That's the vibe that I was getting off of the relationship between Trinity and Neo. And so the need for Neo to be in the Matrix and Trinity made it so that it was like, okay, and then you take the blue pill, everything goes back to normal. We get your incredible energy source and everything's fine. But based on the provisos made by the architect at the end of Revolutions, it was like, if someone wants to leave the Matrix, they are allowed. Like, that is the truth. That is the peace. And that's why there was a civil war between the machines. It was like, but we're losing power. And thus the introduction of more intense nightmares and manipulation through more modern technology, which I thought was great.
Yeah, and to think about how you'd have if they'd done a movie about that, how nightmares taking over the Matrix. That there's so many things they could do that are so unique that I thought would have made better movies than one that's just chasing its own tail. And I get it. Again, it's Lana kind of flipping the bird to WB. It's like, look, just because like we've telling you for 20 years we don't want to do anything, we've told the story, we're done with it. But fine, if you want this, I'll just do that. And it's like ironic that fanboys are hating on it as much as they are, given that they hate what these other corporate studios have done to their beloved IPs. It's like, well, this is an author of the original work who's standing in line with all of their fans want by telling the studios to basically fuck off. It's like, no, we did what we wanted and we want it to stay there and stop making us, but then they still, they hate it. It's like, do what the fans want. It's like, dude, this person's literally standing up for the fans of the original trilogy by making this movie to keep the wolves at bay, so to speak, with Warner Brothers. And it's like,
I love when people say that, what the fans want. It's so weird because you meet you and 5 of your friends.
Exactly.
That's not the fans.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I remember.
We're fans. We don't think that way.
Kat, I remember what I was going to say earlier. I'm surprised that it really was that difficult for Warner Brothers and the Wachowski to come to a mutual agreement about, say, yeah, I don't want to do it. But traditionally, because we've seen this happen with Nolan, one for you, one for me. I'll give you the Dark Knight trilogy. You give me this. I'm surprised with movies like Cloud Atlas and Jupiter Ascending that at no point was there ever an agreement. Okay, we'll give you Cloud Atlas or we'll give you Jupiter Ascending, but you need to give us another Matrix movie. I'm surprised that was never inked into a contract.
True.
And again, I get it. If they didn't want to do it, that's fine. But then Warner Bros. Would have never funded or distributed any of those movies. Oh, look, then you go do them elsewhere. Because that's the business. So I'm surprised it never happened that way. Usually that's how it happens.
I know that Cloud Atlas was actually made by a bunch of several European production companies, and Warner Brothers was just the American distributor because they probably thought they could make some money off it. But I'm not sure who produced Jupiter Ascending.
No, I thought
you're right. Yeah. Oh, and Old Man Bird's responding to you, Ernesto, saying, "Tell us how you really feel about Spider-Man."
Oh, if we were going to talk about that first hour, definitely.
He also follows up, Trinity equals MMM.
He's not wrong, though. But he's not wrong. Also, we're wrong. Books, Old Man Bird.
Well, they say it in the movie. They do say it in the movie. Although that did take me out of it a little bit, is when they kept saying like OMG and they were trying to put in the little emoticon dialogue. I was like, it's a little cringe.
No,
Daniel says he liked No Way Home and he went to see it for Willem Dafoe and Green Goblin and Maguire's Spider-Man, but he wanted Matrix Resurrections to do a lot better.
Yeah. Well, and see, also one of the things that I found, just going back to figure out, okay, so why did this get made? Why did Lana Wachowski go back and make this one? And apparently, because it was like, you watch it, and then at the end, there's the obligatory thanks, mom and dad, thanks to, and apparently there was like a lot, like the Wachowski's parents had died within a short period of time of one another. Mm-hmm. And Lana Wachowski was trying to sort of deal with that loss, and she lost a close friend as well. And then came up with this idea of, it's like, well, I just want to make an idea where I can hang out with Trinity and Neo again, because that is a comfort to me. And the impetus for her to want to make the movie.
So it's another 200 million plus therapy session.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott is locked in the Matrix again.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, and so, but like it was a comfort to go forward and be able to sort of find solace in her grief by making this movie. And so it wasn't just a matter of Warner Brothers, okay, fine, you've asked us enough, now we'll do it. It was a therapy for her to sort of move forward. Now, the reason Lily didn't come back was dealt with that loss herself and said, things end. It's over. And I don't want to. So as her way to move forward past that incredible grief. So I did, when people do look at it as being sort of a cynical cash grab, I get it. but like a lot of people aren't going to go into the IMDb trivias or the special features of it of a Blu-ray to find out what exactly was going on as to why it was made. And people are just going to think it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're making, Die Hard 5 or whatever.
Mm.
Old Man Bird, very generous, keeping the lights on around here.
Hey,
There's
$20
my
super sticker. Thank you. That is
I gotta-
amazing.
I got to see what the super sticker is.
Yeah. What is the super sticker?
Let's
Oh, it's
see.
an actual sticker.
Yeah, for some reason they don't show the stickers on the YouTube. You have to check the super
Oh,
chat thing.
it's a cyborg hippopotamus.
Nice.
Ooh, nice.
Those are dangerous. Better be careful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Daniel says, "Who on earth would want to leave the Matrix? I wouldn't want to leave." Yeah, I mean, unless your life really, really sucked,
Right.
and I don't see why
This-
you would want to leave.
The steak has to be very delicious.
It does.
Yes, it has.
And Cypher's steak looked very, very
It
delicious.
did. He follows that up saying they could do a Matrix series about the second Matrix, or the Merovingian being the first one, and the Ghost Twins being like the agents of the second Matrix, which I do believe happened. Yeah, because they alluded to that in some of the lore. So again, these are all great ideas for, like, there's so many different avenues to milk the IP without having get to the point where it feels like you're milking it. Like, you could actually tell some really compelling stories here.
Yeah.
And it's, not to down what Scott had mentioned about the, the real world tragedy and stuff, but it doesn't need the Wachowskis. If it doesn't need Neo, it might not even need the Wachowskis
Right.
forward.
Which
And
is
not
why
saying
they
that's a
got
bad
Drew
thing. I'm just saying that if it's a new world, then it might need new voices.
Well, and that's why we got Drew Goddard, and we'll see what he puts together.
Absolutely.
And
But to further that, in terms of do you need Neo in the Matrix, it's sort of a question, and I know that the illustrious panel, you guys are far more into current Star Wars than I am, but like my idea of Star Wars has always revolved around the Skywalker family, and without it, I kind of get lost. I don't have an anchor, and so if we go into the Matrix or tell a story of the Matrix, and there isn't the one or the search for the one, which I guess could be in the background for the entire thing, although once you bring up the one, you're always going to be saying, so when's Keanu going to show up in the season finale or whatever?
Well, in our world, Jesus was Jesus was around, right, at some point, and he's still that mythology is still there, right?
That's true.
It's still there even right now, but we don't have to tell stories about. All of our stories aren't about Jesus, right? We
And
tell
right
stories
now,
about all kinds of different things.
And to your
Right?
Star Wars analogy, right now, one of the best things in Star Wars is Andor.
Andor, yeah.
And you don't really have. It's like, yeah, they'll mention Leia, even though she's not really in it, but it has not really nothing to do with the Skywalkers. I mean, so yeah, there's that. So yeah, you can tell other compelling stories. But I remember there was another similar incident like this when Dino De Laurentiis went to Thomas Harris and he said, "Look, I'm going to make another Hannibal movie, whether you want me to or not, but I will give you first dibs to come up with a story if you want." And so he wrote the prequel novel Hannibal Rising, and that was the movie they made, which was just not a good movie, just tank.
Yeah.
Which is, again, to the point that when studios try and force things to happen which aren't organically happening, that have no true artistic merit behind it, it tends not to work. Whereas here, there was artistic merit because Lana had actually something to say, even though she probably wouldn't have knocked on their door, and like Warner Brothers knocked on her door first, and like, hey, we're gonna do this, and like the timing just happened to be really coincidental. That, well, great, because I have an actual story to tell this time. But now they did say that she's going to be executive producer on whatever Drew Goddard is doing. Right. So,
and I think there's like we were saying the tangential kind of spin-off type of movies. There can always be reference to the one. There can always be reference to even Neo and Trinity as the two, I guess, or the dyad, right? There can be reference in those movies without having to focus be on them, right? So
prequel, yes, Old Man Bird. Prequel for sure, just not necessarily prequel with those same characters.
That would be an incredible, like, if you did do, like Steve said, an HBO series, or if you wanted to do the story, like going back to if without the one, because the anomaly didn't exist in the first Matrix, so you could do the downfall of the paradise You could make like Matrix Paradise Lost kind of thing.
But you have to. But it's really going to need some good writing because
Super good writing, yeah.
Because if we're already walking in there knowing how it ends, then you really need to hook us with something. Because I don't want to be thinking about I know how this ends. No, tell me how it began. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, but okay, so but then going back into what we know from the Second Renaissance and knowing that at first the machines were copacetic. They were okay, and it was humanity that really beat them down. And they were like, okay, then fuck yourself. We're taking over. And to have the Matrix be created so that it's, we're not fighting with you. We need you to harness your power, but we're not monsters. Like, we do want what is best for you. And then to show the machines and the programs being like, none of this is working. They are fighting us at every turn, even though we give them everything they've always wanted. And then agents and programs being like, this is who they are. We cannot deal with this savagery. Like, I think that would be an interesting perspective to take at it. But there you go. Call me up, WB, and don't pay me.
Trying not to break too far from the topic, but going back to what you mentioned about, I can't imagine a Star Wars series without the Skywalkers. For me, it's more of like, and this is where, using the term here, this is where Kat mentioned Andor being the best thing they have right now. To me, is the anomaly because it's served well by writing and very good acting. Because to me, Star Wars isn't the Skywalkers. To me, Star Wars is the Force. And at some point, if there is nothing revolving around the Force, you need something to keep my attention. And you need those characters. You need the conflict. If I don't have either of those two things, then I'm going to be that one fanboy being like, no lightsabers, no deal. I need something I need the zoom, zoom, zoom. I need the Force. I need someone to push someone. I need someone to be evil. I need someone to be all good. I need someone to be somewhere in the middle. That's what, to me, Star Wars is, that yin and yang and mixture of both.
And it is interesting. Like, and I know that there are people who feel that way about, even with The Mandalorian. They're like, I know Luke shows up, but it is Force centric. But I think that at this point, in terms of maintaining the franchises or the stories that we've grown up with, there's been such pushback to the shit that even when something is absolutely faithful and true to what its roots are, like I look at Furiosa. I look at even Alien Romulus. Like, I'm not saying Alien Romulus is as good as Aliens, but Alien Romulus is good.
It's damn good. Yeah, I love that.
Thank you, Old Man Bird. More.
Old Man Bird.
What's the next super sticker here, Scott?
I'm checking it out.
Speaking of Alien Romulus, I thought it would show off like kind of Scotty's lightning round of physical media because I had some today.
Sweet.
Nice. There we go.
Oh, what we got there? Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Oh, I like that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
can't buy any physical media.
It's Deja Vu the cat.
Alien Romulus 4K.
Nice.
Very nice. I like that poster.
That's a good movie.
Civil War 4K Blu-ray.
I actually like that more than I thought I would.
That's
I thought it's a really good movie. I thought it would get some awards buzz, but it did not. And then Conflict.
Yeah, I love Conflict. Nice. My favorite movie.
Yeah.
The sexiest religious movie that year.
Oh, and then I should show off this one that we have for the movie we're talking about tonight that Ernesto was kind enough to give to me.
Oh, nice.
It has the Simulate in the back, right?
Yes, Simulate.
That's rad.
I like that play on words, Simulate.
Yeah. I liked it as well. I liked that in terms of that was something that was interesting as well. They sort of they shied away from the greenish color palette and they did make the Matrix more colorful, showing some sort of rebuilding of the simulation. I don't know.
Well, kind of like a symbol of how the analyst is running things differently than the architect,
Yeah.
And but I do wonder the movie also ends with the same kind of mystery where they're like, oh, we're going to rebuild the Matrix. It's like, okay, but if you cause another mass exodus of humans from the Matrix, then it's just gonna happen all over again, you know? So it's kind of like where exactly, like, what do you mean when you say you're remaking the Matrix? It's like, it's not really clear. So it's like, we'll see.
I think it would be based on, well, the way, you know, kind of like, I like how the tables turned for the architect. She was manhandling him in that final sequence in the house. So I think that they're both going to be that, we mentioned the power couple. So they are probably going to do something in their image. And the lion's share of that is going to be from Trinity, because she was so pissed off about he punched her. She punched him by saying, "And that's what's for using the children against me." So I think she's going to view the Matrix as her children, her responsibility.
But for using children, period.
Yeah,
I kind of wanted her to hit him also for deleting, like purging Sati's parents.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, because
by the way, I like seeing Priyanka Chopra in something outside of TV. That was actually nice to see her in something on the big screen.
Yeah, she's fine.
It was actually my choice to be Jasmine, but because she's not the right ethnicity or cultural background, I never got my Priyanka Chopra Jasmine.
Daniel in the chat says, I hope Will Smith comes into Matrix 5, and I think WB approached him to be in it. WB is a bit desperate right now. Yeah, I think I heard something about that as well. It would be interesting, and I don't, my feelings towards Will Smith are well lamented. But
we did discuss it. We did discuss it about future sequels. Why not bring him back? Granted, what he did recently was a music video based on the Matrix, but nothing really having to do with the Matrix. So,
well, and speaking of Will Smith, and I guess we do have Jada Pinkett in here as Niobe. I thought I was going to be very, very angry, but again, because it is a returning character from the previous two films, I was like, you know what, you get a pass, Jada. You get a pass.
I hadn't seen her since the first. This was like the second time I'd seen the movie since theaters, and I forgot how much she looked like the Crypt Creeper in this one.
Yeah. Apparently, it was like a 5-hour makeup ordeal.
Yeah.
And then Daniel,
that's why her head was hanging to the side the whole time. It was heavy makeup.
Yeah. Well, and she had that giant wig.
Exactly.
Daniel's Hot Topic says either bring in Will Smith or bring back Hugo Weaving. No offense to Jonathan Groff, but Hugo Weaving is the best Smith.
I think if they have, if they do use the Smith character, which I'm sure they will, Hugo will be back.
I would like it to be a very grandiose entrance, kind of like Reloaded, where you can see the Jonathan Groff character is brought back, where he's just minding his own business, and then all of a sudden his body starts discombobulating, and then the Smith character comes out in his suit and tie, and then or somebody comes up and fixes his tie as a callback to the Reloaded. He's like, "Thank you, you're welcome."
Yeah.
Another potential problem with bringing Will Smith in is you'd have to be a very different type of character from Neo. Because I mentioned in our first review that it would be like a repeat. If they had cast him as Neo, it would be like a repeat of Men in Black. Yeah. Where he's like the regular guy who's suddenly woken up to this real world of what's actually going on and be like, whoa, like kind of the whole time. It's like, it would be too repetitive if they'd cast him in that role. So if you did bring him into the Matrix world, have him do something different.
You know what's funny?
I'm happy to. I'm happy
totally see Will Smith being like Yahya Abdul-Mateen in Resurrections. Kind of like that very Fresh Prince vibe. I could totally see that for his character.
Sorry, Steve, you were saying?
I'm happy to never see Will Smith in another movie again.
My boy, I get you.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eugene Bird in the chat says, what did you think about Neil Patrick Harris in this one? I was impressed. I liked him. I thought he was
very
great.
Good. Yep.
Very good.
I thought he played the analyst very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was okay.
It's for him. It's a change of pace for him. He wasn't balling again, which I liked.
Daniel says he thinks the architect is way smarter and more intimidating than the analyst. 100%. Like, because the architect was so certain.
Yes.
And just sounded so sinister. Like Neil Patrick Harris was, as the analyst, was kind of just like, you're a regular guy, almost like you're not quite a tech bro, but you're kind of halfway there.
Daniel goes on to say, I hear a lot of people did not like the 60-year time skip, but I think it's awesome because just think about all the adventures that happen in the Matrix that we don't know of. So much could happen. Of course.
So much can be mined out of there too, if they wanted to do that.
But not only that, because it's like when Neo is recovered from the Matrix in the first one, it's like you think it's currently the end of the 20th century. It's actually 200 years after that.
Right.
And so I liked that, where it was like, you think it's 20 years after the adventures of the Matrix, but it's actually 60. So that time displacement was neat.
But it's very consistent with the series, time skip, where very consistent.
Well, and when we talked about the Terminator, and I said I wasn't a big fan of Salvation because of the lack of time travel in it, it's not huge in the Matrix, but it definitely adds to the flavor as to what the Matrix can do to make you feel out of time. Don't forget, the Matrix is just slavery.
It is.
So
just slavery.
Let's see. Daniel says they can do this in either one of two ways, and tell me what you think. One, they could have Jonathan Groff get an upgrade and transform back into Hugo Weaving Smith, or
literally what I just said earlier.
Well, it's always nice to engage with the people who are watching.
What's the second way?
We're waiting. He's typing. But yeah, like this is sort of the same situation. Oh, one more thing that I did want to ask you guys about is the archival footage of the previous films. Did you find that was a crutch, or do you think that it added to the storytelling?
I mean, when it's Neo kind of having these flashbacks, it made sense. But then other times after he's been woken up in the Matrix and then it keeps happening at that point, it's like, I didn't feel they needed it as much at that point.
I think it was kind of like the Dark Knight Rises, a crutch. Like, we know this. You don't have to show us again. It would have made sense for the trailers because you're trying to reestablish, hey, remember this franchise? We're bringing it back. So here's some old footage with new stuff. Within the movie, it's good in some areas, but they kept going back to it more than they needed to.
I liked it just because as we kick this whole thing off, it does get expositionally. I like that it was just like, yeah, this happened. And then you see it, you're all familiar with it. And again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So instead of saying, remember this time, it's like, we'll just show it to you because you remember it. It
didn't bother me either way.
Yeah. And the second part of Daniel's Hot Topic says, or they can have Jonathan Groff Smith get an upgrade and split into two. So we can have Jonathan Groff Smith and Hugo Weaving Smith join forces and help Neo against the Analyst. Or, that wouldn't be a bad thing. Forget Neo, forget Trinity. Just have the two Smiths battle.
Well, the Analyst doesn't seem to have any control over Trinity or Neo anymore. So they don't really need to team up to fight the Analyst anymore. Even though I wasn't really clear why the Analyst suddenly didn't have any power just because Trinity, that's one of the other mysteries where that just kind of happens. And it's like, one of the other criticisms is that there's plot armor that's going, as Ernesto and I like to say, because the plot demanded it. It's like, the plot demanded that just because the Analyst's plan falls apart, that he suddenly has no power over Trinity, or he says, like, oh, can't you control her? Implying that he would still be able to maybe get his hooks into Neo, but just not her. Which again, it's like, okay, whatever. But it seems like he's not really a threat anymore. So I wouldn't think they'd need to team up against the Analyst. But I mean, literally, you can come up with any excuse as to why the Groff character gets reassimilated. They could just come up with some cheap excuse and say, oh, we gave it an upgrade or something, and then for some reason it just changed apparent. For instance, they never really gave a solid explanation as to why the Oracle changes skins. You just kind of, oh, I'm on the run or something, and you just have this ability to change your shell. It's like, okay, they could just do that. I don't think they're going to stress about it.
Well, at this point, having watched the original trilogy and everything, it's like, what the Matrix does as a film series is ask questions, and sometimes it gives satisfying, I wouldn't even say answers, but resolutions
Well,
Which
the
is-
philosophical questions it asks, yes, but then the things like you point out, like how does Neo use his powers outside the Matrix? Well, that's kind of like a plot hole. Those are the things that they should answer, and it's just lazy for them not to.
Well, and I think I just came up with if they make a final entry in the Matrix
Resolutions.
Matrix Resolutions.
I was picking up what you're putting down, dude, for sure.
No, that was by accident, but I'm glad that you felt it too.
Yep.
Wait, what are we feeling here?
The final episode of the Matrix is going to be Matrix Resolutions.
Bold of you to think that it'll ever be final.
Wow. You know, up until recently, I didn't think I was ever going to see the last James Bond movie, but you know,
maybe.
So yeah, that's all in terms of questions and opinions. Like I like it. Do we want to get to the to scoring?
Yes.
What do you give it, Steve?
I give it 6 red pills.
Scott?
I'm giving it a 7.5.
Really like it.
I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to do it again. The chick who played Bugs, a little bit of a crush.
I like Jessica Henwick. She's really good.
I agree, Scott. I am with you there 100%.
Yep.
I don't get the Jessica Henwick obsession. I'm not on the. I'm not.
Cat, you don't have to get it, Cat. You don't have to.
I mean, her character was okay. It's
let
like,
us enjoy the Henwick supremacy. Just let us enjoy it.
What do you give it?
Oh, I'm with Steve on this one. A 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 6 red pills as well. And this is great. Old Man Bird says, the final scene, not the Catrix, but the end scene. What does it mean? Yeah, the Catrix was kind of okay. Yeah, that was of all things to end on. The end credits.
It's been a minute, so the film ends with them 2 flying off into the breeze, right? Okay.
Yeah, telling the analysts they're gonna remake the Matrix.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that they flew off with the cat? Jesus Christ, poor guy.
But even the cat, like, doesn't the cat like sort of ignore the analyst at this point?
Yeah, like a cat.
Yeah, like a cat.
Yeah, but it had always been it sort of been like the sidekick to the analyst, and then in the final scene.
Well, he tells Neo earlier in the movie, he's like, "Yeah, you decided to make the cat represent deja vu and annoyances and glitches in your game because you hate how much you hate my cat."
For whatever reason, in that scene when they were in the cafe, that he kept going after the cat. I thought it was kind of like a familiar situation where if he was able to get a hold of the cat, it would like reset the scene.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I kind of felt like earlier when he made such a point to point out that you don't like my cat. For whatever reason, the first time I watched it, I thought, is something going to happen with the cat? Is the cat like a cheat code or something that the architect has? Because he kept going to the cat with all the bodies being flown around. I'm like, what does the cat have that you need so desperately right now?
Yeah, that was curious. Curiosity killed the cat. No, but that was interesting. And what you just summarized, that makes the most sense. But
I like the cheat code.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
Because it would fit in with the architect's personality. Okay, I'm losing, so I'm going to have to cheat my way out of this one.
Sure.
Well, and it's funny because it really depends on what movie we're watching. It's just like, so you inferred that and you just created that in your head, but it's never represented canonically on screen unless it's something that we all like, in which case we go, yeah. No, that's totally the cat's cheat code.
And we had this debate when we were talking about how does Neo have the powers in the real world, and I inferred, as we are discussing, that
so exactly what I just said.
Considering that he's an anomaly, I totally buy that he can do what he's doing because that's the character.
That's what I was referencing. Thanks for keeping up, pal.
Yes.
Because the plot demanded it.
Yes.
Exactly. Because
hey guys, I have an idea that is going to solve all these problems with the story. The Catrix.
The Catrix.
Just reboot it and call it the Catrix.
Yeah. You can shoot it.
Yeah. Like the movie, not the cat.
No.
Yeah.
Don't shoot the cat.
Don't shoot the cat.
So I guess this has been the Matrix. I don't even know what we're doing next.
I don't know
We'll
either.
discuss after the stream.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But Daniel's Hot Topics, thank you for being in the chat. Thank you for being here. He says, you see, Trinity broke the analyst's jaw. That wouldn't happen to the architect because he's too smart and powerful and he is no nonsense. Yeah, well,
He'd probably use a cheat code. The architect would use the architect would totally use a cheat code to avoid that.
Yes, and he is a gentleman first and foremost.
Yeah.
Yes. And thank you to Old Man Bird for being here. Really appreciate you, sir, once again. It is absolutely fantastic that you make it so that we can continue our Thursday night movie review spectacles. And I'm glad that you support us and appreciate our thoughtful insight. Thank you to Lemon.
We'll be back next Thursday. I just don't know what we'll be reviewing yet.
Yeah, I don't know either.
We'll figure it out though.
And also thanks to Lemon Pie and Herc 130 and Phantom Organist for also showing up and hanging out. This has been fun.
Super fantastic. And it's great. So looking forward. If you have any ideas of what film series you want us to take a look at, feel free to comment in the video comments once we're done here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. And do all the things. Follow the White Rabbit. There you go. This has been so much fun. I'm glad that I got to see a movie that I'd never seen before. You guys are rad, both in chat and my illustrious co-hosts.
What do you think I am? Human?